Welcome everyone to another episode of LunarCRUSH Live. Today we have a special guest, the co-founder and CEO of Superworld, Hrish Lotlikar. He's going to correct me if I screwed up his name there. But we're really excited to talk to him today about Superworld. If you guys don't know about Superworld.app, get out there and check it out. Really cool app. I'm excited to learn, about his history. Sounds like he's moved around a lot in the world, knows a lot about remote teams, which I know, John, you and I want to probably pick his brain a little bit on building a remote company and how that works. So excited to bring him on here. And let's just get to it. Remember, subscribe, get on there. We've got Cardano next week. We got Charles coming on. Going to be really exciting to get him on here and ask a lot of good questions about Cardano and what's happening. Hit that subscribe button. And again, you guys, just a reminder, we do not take payment for our live streams. We bring on cool people, projects that we want to learn about. So without further ado, Hrish, how are you?
Hey, good. Nice to see you guys. Thanks so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
Welcome. Of course. Thanks for coming on. We always like to start this by where are you in the world today and what's it like there?
Yeah, I'm in the Bay Area right now. It's nice and sunny and beautiful. So the weather's not too not too hot, not too cold. It's perfect. It's great to be here. I think I was telling you guys earlier, I spent the weekend in Joshua Tree in the desert. No cell communication. It's the first time I've been like totally unplugged for like a day and a half or 2 days. So
you seem really relaxed. So you're like, maybe you're coming out of that, and back into the flurry of messages that are going to be dinging on your phone.
Yeah, exactly.
Tell us about the withdrawal that you went through all weekend. I want to hear more.
Yeah, I can't remember the last time I've done that. So it's definitely been a while, but I think it's good to do that, to totally unplug for a while. So probably would try to do that. It's not like a 10-day Vipassana meditation or something. I need to do one of those. I don't know if you guys have done one of those, but that sounds intense. Like, being away for 10 days and away from everything, but this was good, man. I liked it finally. And it was good. It was the reason I did it was like this Hollywood kind of get together thing from some friends and stuff that are kind of in the industry and kind of friends of friends. And it was a good bonding network event basically for 2 days.
Wow. That's good.
Cool. Yeah.
It feels like in any industry where there's people there's a lot of attention, right? And there's a lot of eyeballs and those groups tend to want to take a little bit more time away from that and really kind of disconnect, where if you're getting a lot of that attention coming to you, you need to like go the entire opposite end of the spectrum and just unplug for a while. So that's good.
Yeah.
Cool, man. Well, yeah. Tell us a little bit about your journey into Superworld. I mean, I was reading a little bit about kind of your history. You've got some cool stuff that you've done where, it sounds like you've been kind of living nomadically almost for, a number of years. And, you were, I think, in New York when you decided to do that. And like, what was the kind of deciding factor, or what was kind of the straw that broke the camel's back, or the shot heard around the world, where you were just like, you know what, I want to go live somewhere else and I want to go build something somewhere else. And tell us about that journey a little bit first.
Yeah. So, my background is I grew up in Houston. I was born in India. I grew up in Houston. I went to Rice University, grad school in Illinois. I lived in Europe between college and grad school. So I lived in Madrid, Paris, and London. And that kind of expanded my mind to, living abroad and really understanding that I enjoyed that experience and kind of wanted to do it again. So I was always itching to kind of go back and do that. Grad school in Illinois, I was doing an MD, MPH, MBA and did the MPH MBA, which is like a healthcare kind of thing in the MBA. Did consulting out of grad school and then investment banking in New York. And after doing investment banking for a while, I was at UBS and HSBC. I got into venture capital for a number of years, investing across tech and biotech. And about 3 years in, I had an idea. Wouldn't it be cool to go somewhere in the emerging markets and start a VC fund, right? This was like 2009. The US economy was still kind of recovering from the housing crisis. We weren't doing a ton of deals in the US, but the emerging markets was still growing at about 5%. Plus, It would obviously been an amazing adventure to go do that. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to do Eastern Europe and South America. Was just two ideas, right? I got on a plane, didn't know anyone, flew to Ukraine. And then I went to Russia, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Poland, Moldova. So that was how it happened. Ended up taking me about a year and a half. I started an event company first in Kyiv in Ukraine to meet everyone. That's how I got to know everyone in that part of the world.
Meetups.
Yeah. I mean, it was like, almost a necessity, plus it was fun. And then it took me about a year and a half, but I started a venture capital fund backed by a very big investor named Viktor Pinchuk out in Ukraine called East Labs with 2 other partners.
And what were you guys investing in when you started that?
Yeah, so the thesis was, the smartest Eastern European entrepreneurs and technologists work in outsourcing for Facebook and Google. Okay.
Right.
The ones who get on a plane and get to San Francisco start Facebook and Google. So we just have to get them together, get them, access to capital overseas and, teammates and stuff, and help them avoid the lure of going into outsourcing, right? Because you got some of the smartest programmers in the world working in outsourcing. If they can just get together and start ideas, they would be world-changing ideas. They start Facebook and, WhatsApp and, you name it. The biggest companies in the world have a Slavic technologist somewhere on that team. And Victor's team and him loved it. And so we founded East Labs, which was investing in early stage tech companies. There was, it was more of an accelerator, but we had no real limit on check size because he does like Series D rounds and stuff like that too. So we were pretty, wide spectrum in terms of, but our focus was early stage.
It's funny. It's like as a CEO and a founder raising money all the time, it's just funny to go to someone like that. Be like, what's your bite size? You're like, well, 25K to 250 million. I don't know. And it's like, do we like the team? Yes or no? It's really cool though. So you were there for a bit. And then, where did some of this kind of mixed reality, augmented reality, virtual reality come in? And where do you start kind of learning that?
Yeah. So, I did that VC fund. Actually, at the same time, I I'm on the board and also was very early in a fund called Tech Minsk, which is based in Minsk, Belarus. So I'm still on the board there, and it was founded by 2 amazing women there. And the interesting part of this story is that one of the first companies that was in the AR space that got acquired by Facebook and Instagram that now currently does all their face filters for Instagram and Spark AR went through my accelerator and was acquired by Facebook in like 3 months. It's called a company called Masquerade. So that was like my first kind of exposure to AR, VR. And then I got to LA. I mean, after working in VC, I was early at a company called TopTal. TopTal is a talent marketplace backed by Andreessen Horowitz. It's out now, the #1 talent marketplace in the world. So I was an early employee, first biz dev there. So learned a lot, helped grow and scale TopTal. And after TopTal, I went over to the YouTube platform. So I was at a stealth company on the YouTube platform. That's where I met my co-founder at Superworld, as well as my co-founder for my previous company, Rogue Initiative Studios, which is also in the VR AR space. And basically what happened, I went to a house party in LA, Southern California. This was like 2014. And a guy had an Oculus like development kit, like DK1 or something like that. And we tried it out and I was like, wow, this is pretty cool. Like, this is like at a house party. I was having some drinks and tried this thing. And, thought it was amazing. And ended up one of my colleagues at this company, he left the YouTube company, went and worked on a VR company. And then he and I hooked up again and we thought, you know what, let's start a studio focused on Hollywood content. And we started Rogue Initiative Studios. We partnered with Michael Bay. He had previously done Call of Duty, the game, and he previously worked at Amblin and DreamWorks with Steven Spielberg. So Michael joined us. It's a very small community in Hollywood. And so we got connected to a number of people. And we started Rogue Initiative Studios, which does feature film, television, gaming, virtual reality, all the way to amusement park rides and toys. So new original content that becomes franchises. And so I came from this industry of AR, VR. Rogue Initiatives also backed by all the top AR, VR venture capital funds in Silicon Valley. And, we saw Pokemon Go come out in 2017 or so. And Max is my co-founder in Superworld. We thought, you know what? If we can't build the next Pokemon Go, let's build a world. Let's build a place where the next 1,000 Pokemon Goes. And I'm using Pokemon Go as an analogy for adding digital information to the real world. So that's kind of how the whole story evolved.
Yeah, and Pokemon Go is a great example of, a new technology and training the masses into how it works, right? Once people can kind of put their phone up and realize like, oh, okay, this is how I enter this new world. We think of NFTs kind of like that right now with training the world into what is crypto a little bit. It's like, oh, now I have to buy this other thing called Ethereum or what is this other thing and how do I get into it? And so that was a huge kind of trainable and teachable moment, I feel, for people to kind of really understand what that is. And so, yeah, tell us, give us what is the kind of the one-liner on Superworld? I mean, I know what I went and saw, but, I want to hear it from you. Like, when people ask you what Superworld is, what do you say?
Yeah. So, Superworld is a virtual world in augmented reality mapped on top of the real world, right? So I have a world, you have a world, brands have a world. So usually, the best way to describe it is I tell a quick story of kind of a use case for it. There's a lot of moving parts. So I find that telling that story is the best way to get someone to totally understand the full vision of what we're doing. But, if I come to LA and you're not around, you could say, hey, Hrish, check out my world. And I could walk around and you've left me things. You've left a hologram of yourself somewhere fully interactive. I can talk to you. You've left photos and videos in different spots. You've left messages at your favorite restaurants about what I should eat and drink. You've personalized the real world in augmented reality. I have a world, you have a world, brands have worlds. So Nike could put a shoe in the park next to your house, an interactive spinning shoe, but Coca-Cola in the same spot could put a Coca-Cola bottle, right? So any spot in space could have an infinite number of items depending on what world you're looking at. My world, your world, Coca-Cola's. There's an infinite, these worlds are just filters, right? So I've described so far as Pokemon Go, which is an analogy for adding digital information to the real world, meets Foursquare. Foursquare is an analogy for data, right? The data analogy, to be clear, have you guys seen the movie Social Dilemma?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Or at least I think I stopped watching halfway through once I started panicking. But yes.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. And so on the data part of what we're doing is very important to us. And that is, we don't want, these algorithmic bubbles that form where, someone can spend $1 million and program you to think something. We really want, permission data monetization, data sovereignty. And that, that's where a lot of the blockchain comes in as well. And so, the high level vision of Superworld is to improve your world, to build a better world for you, whatever that means for you. And that means you're in control of that world, right? You're able to add content as you please and see things that you want to see. And then the third part of Superworld is monopoly. Okay, that analogy is that we've divided the surface of the earth into 64 billion NFTs. We're on Ethereum now, but we're blockchain agnostic. So we'll be, cross-platform and interoperable as we're evaluating other blockchains as well. And so we built that, and then we're building applications that sit on top of the real estate. So we have a mobile app that's in open beta right now, but I'd say in a couple of months, it should be in much better shape and we'll launch it. And that open beta allows you to create content anywhere, discover content anywhere, and monetize. So you could be sitting in LA and I could be in New York and I could go boop, and I can put something right next to you on the beach and you could look at it. Or vice versa, you could put something on the beach in LA and I could be sitting in New York and I could look at it and it'll appear in front of me in augmented reality. Or you could force me to go somewhere. You could say, hey, go to Santa Monica and find this on the corner. That's kind of like Pokemon Go, making people go to a location. Yeah, right. And then all of that will also include NFTs. So we'll put NFTs in augmented reality in the real world. And then very soon later this month, we're launching a full NFT marketplace, the NFT salon, and it'll allow anyone to create NFTs out of any content. And then finally, we're building a developer API, so other applications can build on top of Superworld. So that's it. And then we're moving into DeFi and further tokenization as well.
On that developer API, does that include bringing in real-time data into Superworld?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Big time. Data is a big part of our strategy. We have Stephen Wolfram on our board, and he's one of the top. Wolfram Alpha. Yeah. Wow. And so data is a big part of our strategy. So yeah, we should definitely talk.
That's fun. That's pretty cool. What is? I'd be curious. What is? This sounds awesome. By the way, I'm so excited. This feels like, you know what it feels like. It's like. It feels like all the random discussions that you've had over the last decade or two that are kind of boiled into one awesome thing. So really cool what you're working on. I'd be curious to understand the user experience of this. Like you mentioned, someone's on the beach here and someone from New York put something in there. Like, what is that user experience? Am I alerted? Does my plot of land have a link to it? Like how does this all come together?
Yeah. So to be clear, you don't have to own a plot to be able to add content anywhere in the world, right? So anyone can add anywhere in the world or view any content from anywhere in the world for free, right? So the plots come into play when you realize kind of what the vision of what we're trying to do is, and you want to, be a key stakeholder on the platform, right? And so, back to your question, and I'll answer the plot question as well, is, first of all, the user experience on the mobile side, which again, we're in open beta right now, but I'd say we're about 2 months away from having that out. But that is kind of a cross between, using an application like Instagram or TikTok, where you're able to create content, right? In this case, in Superworld, we're going to have, full animation capabilities. So you could create a full scene in front of you of like all different kinds of stuff, right? Whether it's 3D animations, it's 2D content, all kinds of stuff. You can animate it. My co-founder has a really great example of like an airplane flying around his office, just to play. I mean, he just did that for fun, but we'll have like full effects and all kinds of stuff that, kind of like what you could create in a studio with 3D content and NFTs, right? So that's the creation side we want to get really, really deep on and really allow users to have this awesome capability. And then on the discovery side of that, again, you could discover from anywhere. So, it could be a notification as a way of discovering, like if I'm in a location or if I'm, interacting with someone and they've left some content somewhere, and so that's one way of discovery. The other way of discovery is just search. So we have a search screen that allows you to search across hashtags and across keywords and profiles and all that kind of stuff. And then monetization. So monetization will be a big part of all of that. So, any of that content you create can either be just monetized as an e-commerce affiliate link to another website. It could be monetized as, a promoted post, as you see on other networks where you're trying to let people know about content that you're promoting, or NFTs is another obvious way. We're building an NFT marketplace for full NFT creation and discovery, as well as putting those NFTs into virtual environments around us. And the other thing I should note is that in Superworld, I use the word augmented reality, but in truth, you can actually go into VR from any location as well. So you can go into a fully immersive environment from anywhere. We call that a portal. And then the real estate part of it is you buy real estate because you want to get, a share of any of the economics that is happening in a location, right? So if you're like, hey, you know what? I want to buy the beach because there's a ton of people who hang out there or doing stuff, and you're getting a share of whatever happens in the infinite number of filters that exists in that location, not just your world, but all the other activity and all the other worlds and monetizations happening in all the worlds that happen on that block.
So if I owned the Eiffel Tower, that block where the Eiffel Tower is, everyone obviously wants to be in that environment. All the brands want some sort of presence there. I can basically lease that environment out to let them use it.
Yeah. And you're not actively like doing any of that negotiation, by the way, right? So it's all happening kind of like Google AdWords, right? Where, there's advertisers and brands that are interacting in this location, right? And or because there's users in that location accessing content. So that's all being done programmatically, and you're getting a share of any of that monetization that's occurring by users in that location, right? That makes sense.
Wow. It makes a lot of sense. This is really cool, man.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I have 64 billion questions for you. One clarification on, you said it's like, so say like, you, John, and I are all just like, we're just the three friends on there, and then there's like kind of the rest of the world. Can I filter everything to say just the three of us? And so, for example, I'm only seeing, like I'm not seeing the Coca-Colas, or I'm not seeing the Reeboks and the Nikes of the world, but I'm just seeing kind of our content together. Like, can I do that? Because it's like, there's this kind of co-op version where it's like, hey, everyone's purchasing the land that gives them, which is essentially like a DAO governance structure in a sense, which is super cool. But can I just say, hey, I only want to see, like, I filter all that stuff away, and I just want to have this small world with just us?
Yes, 100%. That's where the data aspect of data sovereignty and data monetization and integrity of what you're seeing and what you want to see is very important to us. So if you want to just see like a clock or something like that, or whatever, it's like your iPhone, right? If you want to remove all your apps and just have like the clock or something, you could do that. And so that's kind of the approach here, is that if we want everything to be permissioned, and we only want you to see what you want to see. I have kids. I don't want them being sucked into some world where they're like looking at their phone all day. Superworld's all about human interaction. Like, I'm a humanist, right? And so we're building this to improve our real lives, right? Improve your real life, not to suck you into some virtual world where you can't get out of it because you're just, wanting to keep getting these pings or rewards and stuff like that. We want to figure out, how we can, build this in such a way that this is benefiting you. And there's a lot of ways that this is going, right? I mean, I think we're all moving. We all know we're moving into a more virtual digital environment. And as AI, it really comes into play and takes over, other jobs, we're moving into more creative roles in life. I think that's where we're going in general. And as we become more creative, a platform like Superworld enables and empowers that creativity, because now you can, as the NFT movement has shown you and shown all of us, that we can create art and create, experiences that can make people really happy and can show them the power of, human creativity. And that can be marketed and sold. And so, I think that our viewpoint with Superworld is we want to be able to enable that globally in a very open way and allow people to have that access. That's kind of where we're going with the big vision of Superworld.
Well, on that big vision, where does this look like? If it's 2025, what does Superworld look like?
Yeah, I think that we're going to be wearing glasses in the next couple of years, or at least some of us will. I don't think they're going to be amazing, but it's going to be kind of like the earliest, versions of even Oculus or something like that. I mean, Oculus has done a really great job with their latest Quest. I think it's only going to get better. Ray-Ban and Oculus have a partnership. Tim Cook has been really promoting AR in a big way. I mean, ARKit is Apple's product, and that's where everyone is building their AR apps. AR Core from Google. Qualcomm has a chip called the Snapdragon chip. We have 5G that's being rolled out all over the world. We have what's called AR Cloud, which is being built by Google and Apple and Niantic and others, which allows you to pinpoint objects around you in the real world. We have, again, on the hardware side, audio, haptic suits. I mean, there's a lot of stuff happening. All these technology inflection points are really coming together right now. And you add to that COVID, which has really kind of accelerated all of this and made us realize, I might have to be more virtual. And you know what? I actually kind of like it. You know what I mean? I don't have to do the commute anymore, or I can see things around the world. And so back to Superworld, I think what we want to do is look at all those use cases right? And, whether you're talking about an audio thing, an audio tour, or seeing a piece of art, or going on a tour, or going traveling, or if you just communication, there's, a live event somewhere. I think there's so many different use cases for what we're doing. And then also, I think we're changing the way we think about how to access content. Instead of looking for a website, you can look for a location, just like you would in the real world. Right? If you were on the street, you wouldn't go like, oh, I'm going to look at a website right now. You just say, oh, I wonder what's going on at this bar. You know what I mean? And so that's kind of what's going to happen is you're going to go into Superworld, and you're going to be able to access locations, whether you're physically there or virtually there. And you're going to see content that's going to explain, or tell you or show you or allow you to experience or transact before you even enter the location potentially, right? Or, virtually.
Well, it's interesting. One thing that you brought back was COVID. And I was thinking, I think it was exactly 12 months ago when Travis Scott was performing in Fortnite. And I've got 2 boys, and that was the moment that I think woke them up going, whoa, like we're actually attending a live event in another world. But I mean, to say that that's happening in the real world also, like layered on top of it, man, I love it. I love it. Make it happen.
Yeah, I was just kind of like, my one question was, how has COVID and then, even NFTs now, it's like kind of the perfect storm for you guys. But it's also, one of my questions was going to be, why recreate the real world versus creating a new world that people can go to? But now I think I'm understanding, like what John was just saying, like attending a concert, either virtually or live, might start to blend into like almost the same thing. Right. Is that kind of what you guys were thinking of? Like, well, if I'm walking around with an Oculus, or like I'm walking around in my backyard or wherever I'm at, I'm starting to map that world too. And that mapping is starting to kind of come into what you guys have built. I don't even know if that was a question, but it's just like, you're blowing my mind right now.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I think it's, like we want people to interact in the real world. I mean, seriously, put down your phones and like hang out. You know what I mean? Like deal with people. Go to Joshua Tree, unplug. But if you want to go virtual, or you want to enhance your current life with virtual content or experiences, like I said, you can't make it to, South by or a concert somewhere or something. You can do that in a virtual way. And whether we're building it or someone else has built that experience, we want you to be able to access it by going to the map, going to South by, and seeing what's there, right? We want to be that central location, along with all the other things that we're doing, right? On the data side, on the content creation side, all the other partnerships that we have in place. We want to kind of be, the entry point into the metaverse, into all these opportunities. And the reason we're mapped to the real world is real world always has relevance to reality. Because again, we're really focused on you as a person. And so we want to come to you, if that makes sense. We don't want you to come into Superworld. We're there. We're around you, all the time. And if you want to access that content, you can in Superworld.
One thing that's interesting here, just to throw up a comment from Tyler Smith over on YouTube. He says, one of my favorite things to see in Superworld is when friends buy up a block together, making good on that childhood promise of let's all live down the street from one another. I think that's interesting because the world lets you down sometimes when your best friend moves across the country, when you stop talking to some people, but you create something even better. I guess you create a Superworld, don't you? I'm doing your marketing for you here. You create something that's larger than life. I think that's kind of interesting. He has actually a really big point where you can create the ideal environment that you want on top of what you already have. So I think that's a pretty amazing point.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's very interesting, and it's a great point. Is there's a lot of things that you may or may not be able to do in the real world, or own in the real world, or be able to kind of because a lot of these places you can accrete value to, right? You can make a place. I mean, if you think of like Burning Man, right? That's just a desert, in Nevada, you know what I mean? And now it's a place. Like people buy that part of the desert and they're like, oh, I bought the, where Burning Man happens, right? Black Rock City. And so, the point is that in Superworld, you could create value in places that for whatever reason, may not be as well known, but you can make them well known for something that you're doing. Liverpool is where people think of for the Beatles, right? And that's just because where they came from. But you could, we have an artist last week who bought his studio. Richie Hawting is a well-known DJ, and he wants to do a lot of content around that studio. So instead of doing things online, he wants to create those events and activities at his studio. So people go to the map, go to his studio to access content, NFTs, events, concert, all the stuff that he's going to do. And so he's creating value in a place which was just his studio before. Like maybe people didn't even know his studio was there. Do you get what I mean? But now people are like, oh, that's his studio. That's where it is. I'm going to go there virtually or physically, and I'm going to do things there. Right.
So in theory, someone could buy a plot of land in the middle of nowhere, somewhere in the middle of the desert here on the way to Vegas or something. There's nothing. And in the real world, it's dead right now. There's absolutely nothing going on. Make something out of it in the virtual world, and then perhaps even build something upon it in the physical world because it's now worth something because of, wow, that's pretty cool.
You get it? Yeah.
Entirely different way to drive people to your new whatever you're creating.
Man.
And it's a way, but even to even stuff that's already kind of interesting and having the experience, and it's I feel like there's this underserved portion of the world where it's maybe someone is, disabled or something and they can't travel as much and they can't experience the world that's out there in a way, but by putting this thing on, and going to the Eiffel Tower, right, or going to Burning Man, not just watching a video of it, but you're kind of there in this mixed world. It's bringing that joy to so many people that otherwise maybe even financially couldn't access those things. There's so much to that, and getting those people excited to now build their things and creating the commerce for them, that they can kind of build up their brand or their identity or whatever it may be. It's a more accessible world. Right. For the democratization of people to create new things that will get them maybe potentially access to stuff in the real world. So it's great. It's such an amazing way to get people in that otherwise wouldn't be. I did have a question for you on just like VR, right? John, you and I remember 6-7 years ago, you put on the thing and you'd go Apple, NBA TV, right? You'd be sitting courtside. And I think the NBA did that early on. And it was I was like, holy shit, I'm at this game. It felt really good, but I feel there's still it hasn't, that was 5-6 years ago. We're still waiting, is it the technology is not exactly there? You're saying 5G is coming. Some of these other things are coming that are going to make it where people are going to want to put this thing on a little bit more. Cause I still feel there's some apprehension there. And I don't know, maybe you've kind of noticed that too.
Yeah, sure. So the technology is moving fast. And we're, our vision is to obviously adopt the latest in technology. So we have 3 kind of top spectrum kind of goals, right? So one, I've talked about it, is to be really concerned and focused on customers and what they want. What do they want us to build? What are they looking to do? Number 2, I would say it's innovation. So being, back to your question, is being really focused on what's out there. What can we integrate here? We're doing stuff with audio and AI and all kinds of stuff right now. And then the third part of it is just very long-term focus. So we're building for the long term, and the technology is going to get there in the long term. And in the medium and short term, it's moving really fast, as you can see with what's happening even on your phone with LiDAR that just came out on the iPhone this year, right? With LiDAR, for example, you can just scan a room and now you have a 360 version of anything, right? And so if you think of the content creation side of that, now your phone comes with a 3D, environment tool, and it's just standard, right? So imagine being able to pop every one of those things into Superworld, right? Which is what you're going to be able to do. And so the tech's getting better. I think on the 5G side, that will make connectivity a lot faster, obviously, for viewing a lot of this content. And then glasses, when those come out and those are in really good shape, I'd say those are really nice pair of glasses, probably 3 to 5 years out. But I would say next year, next year and a half, glasses will be in market and people will start buying them. So it'll come. It's coming fast, and we're going to adopt it, including the blockchain, which is as we know, a technology that is transformative to all of the parts of Superworld that we're building.
I think just related to that, I've read maybe 3 or 4 times in the last 2 weeks about Apple coming out with glasses. More than rumors, they're looking at supply chain and all sorts of different things. It's coming. It's definitely coming for sure. And that's to me, it's interesting because I mean, I think the first time we put on VR goggles was 5 or 6 years ago, something like that, and you were getting dizzy. Like you take them off and you're disoriented, and you do that now, and it's like, wow, it's like super clear. You're not seeing any pixels. It moves quickly. The frame rate's really nice, and it refreshes clean, and it's not like jarring. The sound is all perfect now. I mean, it's changed, but it's like it seems to like a big roadblock has been AR, not VR. VR is a kind of a harder thing to adopt in its current form. You got to sit there and put these goggles on. But yeah, if these glasses come out, that's a game changer. That's a pretty big deal if people are going to wear them. Pretty cool. On the blockchain side, love to hear more about that. So you're using Ethereum. You even mentioned earlier talking about interoperability. Why? What are you looking at? What are some of your issues and roadblocks right now?
Well, I think gas is an issue that we're all dealing with on Ethereum. And I think, having a very frictionless kind of transaction experience without gas would be very positive for users. And so we're looking at options to, employ other blockchains. We're looking at, Flow, we're looking at Wax, we're looking at, other ways to do it. The thing that we want to do is make sure that we remain decentralized. We want to make sure that we're providing our users with the ability to own the NFT that they're buying, and be able to trade that. So really, just kind of want to make sure that user experience is taken care of. But I think that if you talk to any of the other providers out there or blockchains that are in the marketplace, there's always kind of things that just kind of give and take for a variety of those different ideas, and so we want to kind of figure out what the best solution is and go with that one. So that we're evaluating it right now. We're also looking at DeFi. So Ethereum is still very important to us as we're moving into the DeFi market. So it's kind of it's trying to figure out a variety of different things, and Ethereum 2.0 that's going to be a game changer for us. So I think those are all kind of the things we're weighing.
So lots of different, potentially interoperability. Even it sounds like you might be looking at multiple chains, different technologies that all meet that user experience.
Yeah, right. And we have, I'm taking a lot of advice from people a lot smarter than me in the space. So Nitin Gower is on our board from the founder of digital assets at IBM. We're backed by Draper Goren Home, and we also have a variety of other, people on our board like Stephen Wolfram and others, in Mariana Danilovic in the blockchain space that are kind of helping us kind of assess what our best strategic options are as we look to remove or reduce gas fees and just make the best user experience possible for owners of real estate, as well as all the other digital assets are going to be created on the platform. And we want users to have that ability to transact regardless of whether they're using Ethereum or they have another cryptocurrency. So interoperability would be amazing. It's just a matter of like, how do we get there? And I think we have to make some decisions about different focuses because it's hard to get to full interoperability immediately. And so I think we do have to pick certain routes to getting there.
Yeah, it's interesting when you think about like gas fees in the context that people think about gas fees today. They're looking at gas fees in terms of like, I'm going to place a trade on Uniswap and it costs a certain amount, that kind of thing. Very, very different than I'm in the middle of using a virtual world and I go to transact with something And not only does it cost me, $79 to do a $7 transaction, it also takes a very, very long time to confirm. And so if you think about that from a user experience standpoint, you end up in a really strange place where the user's sitting around waiting in a virtual world. So it kind of breaks. So it's speed is another pretty big deal, it seems like, with what you're doing.
Yeah, definitely speed is very important. At this stage, we're selling real estate, right? So, people are going onto a map and they're buying real estate, and it's a little bit of waiting depending on how much gas you've added. The gas fees can be high depending on time of day and volume. But yeah, once you get into some of these real live, interactions, as I've described, speed, and you're in a location and you want certain things to happen, then you're 100% right. Like speed becomes more of a factor. And so when we're in that situation, when we're there, I think we'll definitely that we'll have solved that, and we're working on that right now, as well as the other stuff that we're doing. Yeah,
love it. What is the average? I guess I'm sure it varies depending on where, but what is the average cost of a plot of land?
So it's right now, anything that's unpurchased is 0.1 Ether. So if it's not been bought yet, everything is 0.1. So it's a great time to buy, because you can go and buy anything from Manhattan to, wherever your favorite, vacation spot in the woods or something, for 0.1, right? However, that might change in the future. We might move to more of a plot by plot auction model, based on demand. So we're deciding what to do there, but right now, everything's 0.1. And, so once you buy, you can obviously reprice that to whatever you want. So if you go and pick up some plots, you can immediately reprice them, even while, all that stuff is still kind of being built out, because then the other buyers will come in and, might want your spot and buy it from you. So, yeah.
Love it. We got a question. Sorry, go. Wait,
no. I was gonna say, ask that question, and I've got one on what you just said.
Yeah,
sure. So I thought Pablo Castaño had a really good question here. As a creator, what do you have to get into to contribute to this virtual world? Game engines?
Yeah. So as a creator, what we want to do and what we're building out in our application is two things. So one is the ability to use our tools and use our 3D objects and animation features in there. So anyone, regardless if they have ability to program in a game engine, can still utilize our tools to create pretty awesome scenes and animations everywhere, or leave content, or it can be as simple as like taking content from your camera roll, like a photo or a video, or writing something, all the way to a full animation of something. And we want to have the tools on our mobile app to allow people to do that. Okay. And then the second thing is, if you are a developer and you have access to Maya or Blender or other gaming engines, we want you to be able to upload that content into Superworld. So as an example of that, we're working with Vesa, who's one of the top digital artists in the world right now. And he's building a, 3D museum in Egypt next to the pyramids. And it's an elaborate 3D museum that we're building in a gaming engine. And that museum will be unveiled in Superworld. And you'll be able to, whether virtually or physically, if you're there, go into it, look around, and buy NFTs.
That's cool. I can't wait for that. When is that coming out?
So that will coincide with when the app comes out. So next few months, we're building it right now. He teased it yesterday. We had a meeting this weekend where we're working together, his team and our team, to try to put this together. So they were inside of it, looking at it over the weekend. I was in Joshua Tree without any cell connection, so I wasn't able to make that meeting. But they've been making good progress on it.
Yeah, I actually first heard about some of your stuff. I saw I think Krista Kim on CNBC talking about like a house that she was creating that looked insane. And then, my question is kind of around this like ancient Adams question here. He says, like, what would be the purpose of purchasing a plot in the middle of the ocean? But then, to kind of tag on to that, and I don't know if I know this is not like in the next 3 months of roadmap, and it's like maybe what do you think about when you're in Joshua Tree for the weekend? But what about like going into like Marianas Trench? Can I buy into the ocean? And then this idea of like a portal gets me super excited, because I was like, well, can I buy something on Mars? Can I buy a little bit of the moon? Like, what about the International Space Station? So you start to kind of like there's this whole world on the surface, but then there's all these other things. I mean, I don't know. Like, do you guys kind of get excited and talk about that and go down that rabbit hole a lot?
Yeah. So, I mean, inherently wherever you are, I think there's like some Dr. Seuss saying, wherever you are, there you are, or something like, I don't know, forget what that is, but it's kind of like you're always in a location on Earth, regardless of like, where you're viewing.
Yeah.
And so that is where your monetization will occur. But to the point of the ocean or any environment where maybe it's not accessible to, like, you're not going to walk there or something like that. The idea is, just like anywhere else, you could add content there. You could create a concert on the ocean. It's just going to be virtual, right? Probably won't. Unless there's boats and stuff. Like, I mean, there are some like yacht
Of Course,
parties.
I Still Love You from SpaceX is there, and that's where they're doing the concert, right? Like on the
yeah. And there's like Yacht Week and stuff where all these boats and people are hanging out, and that would probably be a cool ocean environment to do some AR stuff, or to buy a place where there's a lot of boat parties and stuff like that. And so the one thing is if it is accessible by a boat, or if it is accessible and there are people there, that's another opportunity. However, as we look at DeFi and other options, there's a lot of ways to create value anywhere just by owning a plot, right? So owning a plot out of the 64 billion plots gives you access as a stakeholder in our ecosystem. And, there is value in doing that. And so, we want to make sure that over time, even though I would tell you that, in terms of user activity, in terms of people walking around, that usually happens on land, obviously. There will be use cases and value driven all over the Superworld platform, all over the globe, even in areas that are covered by water. In the example I gave you, but also just because you're a plot owner in Superworld. So that will be evolving over time, but it's a great question. And then to your question about entering a virtual environment and going into space, I mean, we can create all kinds of virtual environments, right? And so, going into a virtual environment and having some level of potential ownership of that. The other thing to keep in mind is that you don't just monetize by owning land. You also monetize by, potentially creating experiences, or, the content creation monetization is also a big part of this. And so that could be that you're creating experiences on the moon or other places, or virtual experiences that are monetized.
Yeah, so that is a perfect transition into what someone is asking, named Rabbit Hole here. Can I build a casino on my plot? And then he follows that up with a bank. I won't follow it up with the third thing he asked, but but I mean, what kinds of things is a casino possible, or a bank? Can this happen within Superworld?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely possible. I think that there's obviously some gaming laws and other things that relate to any technology or company like ours that exists in different jurisdictions, and how that relates to the jurisdiction where it is, or where we operate, and how that functionality would work for users and such. But we want to enable, anyone to be able to build anything on the platform, right? So it is really the sky's the limit. Like, whatever you can think of, you can build, especially if you can build it in a gaming engine, which is pretty limitless at what you can build. On the banking side, we are moving into DeFi. And so there are potential other ways that, our super citizens can build, utilizing what we're doing on the DeFi side, or building upon what we're building on the DeFi side. I think that, like, our high level vision is we want to really empower users. We want to allow them to improve their life, be able to access resources, be able to create. And, I think we're all seeing that, blockchain is enabling all of us to take part in a variety of economic mechanisms that maybe before we had to go through a centralized party, and now we don't have to as much. And so, I think we'll be on the cutting edge of what's possible, and we want to integrate with all of those technologies. And you'll see some partnerships being announced very soon in a variety of areas for us that are going to be, accelerating the ability for our users to interact with other blockchains too.
Having worked with John for many years, I can see you're turning his gears in his head right now, and he's doing this thing, and he's getting excited. I want to, we don't have too much time left, but I did want to kind of touch on this. You seem to have built this company remotely, and you have worked in your career remotely, and now we're in COVID, and it's like you had, I think, some experience building it remotely and moving around a lot. I mean, what are some of the growing pains or things that you've gone through in your career with regards to building remote teams? What have you found? A couple of things that have worked really well. What are some hoops that you had to jump through? I mean, can you just give a little background around what do you think's made you successful with regards to remote work?
Yeah. So, I started doing remote work when I, was early in the TopTal team, which TopTal is the largest remote talent platform in the world. And, just kind of being on a team that was working with remote talent, providing remote talent for companies, and then doing that internally as well, because we were all situated all over the world as a team. The core team was also totally remote distributed. What I realized very quickly for myself was lifestyle-wise, this was awesome. I was like, wow, this is awesome. I can live anywhere in the world I want. I started with TopTal. I was living in Saigon in Vietnam, and then I was in Cambodia, and then I was in Nepal, and I was but I was working for a San Francisco-based company, and working with rural clients, working all over the world. So one, flexibility, I realized for myself, wow, this was awesome. I never wanted to not do this again. I wanted to see the world. It's funny that I'm doing Superworld now because it is all about the world, but it was one, it just, to my heart, I was like, this is how, at least for me, this is how I always wanted to work. So one thing I would tell you is that I think employees at a company really appreciate that, and once they've done it and once they can see how that works, they really appreciate it. But back to your question, I think that, you learn what the best practices are, and they're evolving. I remember when we were at TopTal back in 2013, we were using Skype. It was we had Skype groups and Skype communication every day. Now we're on Slack, right? Which is, kind of the same thing. Slack's a big improvement. But I think the tech will always kind of catch up, and you just kind of figure out what the best practices are. There's a lot of guides out there. TopTal is a guide, but there's also guides by, I think, the guys at Basecamp, 37 Signals. Right. They have a book called Remote, which we read back in the day as well, which is great. A great way for anyone who wants to live remotely or work remotely, figure out what you need to do to do that for yourself, and then for an organization to integrate remote. And the benefits of it are, obviously you're global from day one. And the other part of it that I notice is that communication is pretty awesome. If you don't have to be in the same room, it makes you so much more efficient. Because a lot of people wait to talk to each other. They're like, oh, I'm going to wait till this person's back in the office and I can go and meet them in the office or something, And when you're remote, it doesn't matter where you are or what time zone you're in. You can just communicate and you'll hear it's asynchronous, right? So it's a lot more efficient.
Is there any just tactics or low level things that you guys do once a week or once a month that you always are we need to go do this to get everyone either on the same page or everyone, back to a place where we're kind of centering everyone? Is there any kind of super tactical thing you could share with us?
Yeah, I mean, we do a lot of meetings every day, every week with different product teams. But we also often have some kind of social events to get people together. So on the business side, I mean, we have a lot of meetings where everyone, at least groups of teams are meeting and talking. And on the same page, and they're doing daily check-ins and stuff on Slack, stand-ups. So that's happening all the time. I'd say that the communication is probably more than you would have in an office environment. I mean, a typical office environment, just because it's all remote. Like I said, communication is key to this. And then I think on the social side, we try to do events where, like little parties and stuff on Fridays, depending on people's schedules and who wants to do it and run it. But yeah, I think that's good too. And then a lot of companies do these kind of in-person live like get-togethers and retreats a few times a year, which can be really fun. And, we're kind of growing as a company. And I think in the future, we'll probably do that in amazing locations around the world, right? It's Superworld. So we have to.
In Superworld.
In Superworld. I love, wow.
No, it's so cool. And I'm just, as you're talking there, I was just kind of envisioning like companies coming together, but like also like when you're talking about DeFi, it's almost kind of interesting of like DeFi, like some DeFi, it's like, hey, I want to go add liquidity to this pool or whatever I'm doing. And as opposed to just going to a website and doing it, it's like, well, I'm going to go to their location and see if anyone else is there. And maybe I'm about to go add liquidity and someone else is there. And I'm like, hey, why are you here? What did you hear about this? Right. But like you're not physically, you're virtually, but physically doing it in Superworld, right? Or like interacting. It's like, so if we're LunarCRUSH and we've created this, like, we bought up Burning Man and now that's actually LunarCRUSH where people come to learn or do something. It's like, hey, I'm going to go sign up for LunarCRUSH and I'm going to go see who's out there. I'm like, hey, why are you here? What are you learning? What's going on in there?
Yeah.
It's just like a whole nother level of something that's insane.
Yeah, you can do that. Like you can create a LunarCRUSH HQ somewhere in the world in Superworld. And then, anytime you have things like that's where you go and people visit virtually or physically, or you can have you can do these things in like 1,000 locations all at once, right?
Right.
You can be like, hey, this event is at, in 200 cities in the world at the same time. You know what I mean? So, it doesn't just have to be one.
Right.
So yeah, it's really interesting how you can bring people together in the world, regardless of where they are. And they have like a common access point to what that is, right? Just like we do in the real world, like
right.
Every state has a capital, every city has like a courtyard or whatever, a center of that city, things like that.
Amazing. So
we have to end this live stream soon because my head's gonna explode.
I know. I was like, I gotta go. I'm gonna go buy pad 39. Hey, I'm gonna go. I want to know. And last thing, and then you can tell us where to find you. But what do you own on Superworld?
Yeah, I got my properties like 3 years ago. So yeah, I can't
just tell us one. Tell us one that's kind of fun that you've got.
Yeah, I'm from India, so I own like part of the Taj Mahal. That was kind of cool. I own some of the pyramids, which I love Egypt and the pyramids, so that was kind of cool. I lived in Manhattan, so I've lived kind of all over the world nomadically. So there's always like cool places that I've just been close to. I love Kyiv in Ukraine. So little, places that maybe you wouldn't know there, but just some places that I just kind of close to my heart. That's the cool part, by the way, is everyone has a story.
Yeah.
Right. Everyone has a reason. If you ask anyone, like, what did you buy in Superworld? Our friend Alon, like, bought his running trail and he's super into that running trail. Like every time I talk to him, he's like into he loves it, which is cool.
Park, yeah.
Yeah, it's cool, right? I love that. I love hearing people's stories about where they love, because I love traveling. And what's cool about it is they get to now do things in those places that they probably could never have done before. And they also own those places in Superworld. So it's a whole new thing. So it's awesome.
So cool. Well, this was amazing. Thank you so much for coming on here and talking through this. And I know the audience had a lot of questions, and thank you everyone for asking them. And so where do people find Superworld? How do they get started?
So you can Google Superworld. So, if you Google Superworld, I think we come right at the top of that search. Our website is superworldapp.com.
Okay.
That's the best way to access it. The number one thing that you can do right now is just go to the real estate page. So enter Superworld, go and check out where in the world you want to buy. Again, the next product that's coming out around sometime this month will be the NFT salon, to allow anyone to create NFTs. But that's where you find us. We're all over all social media, Superworld App, at Superworld App, everywhere. Yeah. And, feel free to connect to me, drop me a message. I really want to hear from people. So if you have questions, if you want us to build something, if you have ideas, if you want to get involved somehow, we have a thing called Team Superworld, where everyone can go to our website, look for Team Superworld on the About section and sign up. And you will start kind of being able to earn crypto and other things as you start interacting in Superworld.
Awesome. Well, Hrish, it was a pleasure chatting with you, my man, John, as always. And yeah, man, we will be in touch. We'll chat with you backstage here. Thank you guys so much for listening. We'll talk to you all soon.
Awesome. Thank you.